Until the day that Africa acquires nuclear weapons, you will never be respected.
This concept of Pan-Africanism was not founded by Africans themselves.
If we cannot have conversations about difficult things, if the conversations themselves are now the difficult things, then what hope do we have of fixing the difficult things?
There is a big anti-government movement going on in Africa as we speak right now. It is very important that we also underscore that somebody like Marcus Garvey was a big proponent of this ideology, and he even made himself the president of Africa. And he did this without consulting the Africans to find out if this was something that the Africans wanted.
President Traore, who has led the struggle to complete the unfinished business that was started by our ancestors and our Pan-African leaders in 1963 when they created the Organization of African Unity.
There's a saying that what goes around comes back around. Most of the black people around the world are not naive about the role that Africans played in slavery and slave trade.
What do you want? I want the throne.
Hey, you, the tuna.
Y'all sitting up here comfortable. Must feel good. It's about 2 billion people all over the world that looks like us, but their lives are a lot harder. Wakanda has the tools to liberate them all.
And what tools are those?
Vibranium. Your weapons.
Our weapons will not be used to wage war on the world.
When a certain habit stays in the community for more than 2 years, it becomes a culture.
I'll take you both of you, James.
The black people around the world are not naive about the role that Africans played in slavery and slave trade. Whether you find yourself in Kenya or in Rwanda or in Burkina Faso or in Nigeria, where you find yourself today, that tribe, you guys are not the original settlers. You came there, fought some wars, and took over. The reason why I say this is because this is how human beings have been over time. So for those who want to hold Africa for slavery and slave trade, or hold the white folks for slavery and slave trade or colonialism, and I want to say this has been human behavior over time.
They created the Organization of African Unity. During that meeting, they demanded the creation of an Africa that spoke with one voice, an Africa that was united. That journey is yet to be finished.
Africa is a continent and not a country. And the reason why I brought the founding fathers is because Henry Sylvester grew up in Trinidad with his fellow black brothers and sisters that he sees around him. They spoke a similar language. So their idea is maybe Africa was one nation, one group of people speaking the same language, had similar cultures and all of that. But that is not the reality. Africa is very diverse. Right now, as I speak to you, Cameroon has approximately 250 ethnic groups.
Until the day that Africa acquires nuclear weapons, you will never be respected.
If the whites wanted to colonize you today, they will still do it. Because when you guys are building your individual countries, there is healthy competition, and that stimulates growth.
History has demonstrated that you must deter others by telling them that you are capable of doing your worst.
And so I'm making this message to help fellow Africans have perspective so that you can be able to work with your government in your nation to bring about change. The way we are going, if we are not careful, we will destroy ourselves. So I wanted to dig deep and help you understand where this concept called Pan-Africanism came from and what it has done to you, your psychology. Our governments are work in progress. Yes, they are. They adopted these systems from the colonial masters, and they have been struggling extremely hard to make progress with what they got from the colonial master. But with the pressure that we are mounting on them, instead of them investing in us, in their nation, they are investing in security to protect themselves because of this uprising in the continent. And Pan-Africanism has a huge role to play when it comes to you fighting your government.
Roland Fru, founder of CSDP, Cameroon Sustainable Development Project. You have taught us the true meaning of hard work and determination. You have taught us how to believe in ourselves. You are one of the prides, the lives of the youth of Cameroon. You are an inspiration to our generation. We love you, Mr. Roland Fru.
What I'm sharing with you here is the Cameroon dream. The Cameroon dream is a dream of a nation where French-speaking Cameroonians and English-speaking Cameroonians live in unity, live as brothers and sisters, love one another, cooperate to establish businesses and projects that create the ecosystem for productivity.
Have you ever asked yourself the question, I know this is the right thing to do, but for some reason it is hard to just change from the old ways, what I've always known. It is difficult to just do what I know will produce the results that I really want. And this is a challenge that many people face, right? And you ask yourself the question, why is it that some groups of people, or maybe in a nation or in a continent, it is hard to just change and start doing what I think will give me the results, maybe for my life, for my nation, for my business, for my family, your relationship. Maybe you're married and you know what to do, you know the right thing, but for some reason it is hard to maybe stop that cheating habit. It is hard to maybe quit alcohol. It is hard to just do what I know will give me the peace of mind that I need. But yet change is really hard. Today, I want us to explore the subject of Pan-Africanism. It is a very prominent concept in the continent. But have you ever stopped and asked yourself the question, yes, this idea has been around for some time now. Why is it hard for the entire continent of Africa to just come together and we have the continental free trade area and have one single president? Why is it that this new wind of change and idea is hard for people to adopt? Maybe you looked at the idea and you asked yourself the question, maybe it's African presidents. They don't just like the idea. Maybe it is the youths. They are not really taking action on the idea. And today, I want us to explore the idea of Pan-Africanism.
President Traore, who has led the struggle to complete the unfinished business that was started by our ancestors and our Pan-African leaders in 1963 when they created the Organization of African Unity.
Maybe you don't even know when it started. You probably thought maybe Pan-Africanism started in 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. But the concept of Pan-Africanism has been around since the 1900s. And I thought maybe I bring to your consciousness how this idea came about. And the goal is to share perspectives with you. So if you take a close look on your screen, you realize that we have some pictures, right? 3 gentlemen. And these are the founders of the idea of Pan-Africanism. So the individual who founded this movement was Henry Sylvester Williams. So Henry Sylvester Williams was a lawyer from Trinidad. And if you heard about Trinidad, you know he was born in Trinidad way back in the 1800s. That is the individual who founded Pan-Africanism. So, you know, he was born and raised in a time where there was racism. There was a lot going on in the Caribbeans. And so he thought about this idea of Africans coming together, people from African descent coming together for solidarity.
If we cannot have conversations about difficult things, if the conversations themselves are now the difficult things, then what hope do we have of fixing the difficult things?
Remember, this platform is for thinkers, those who want to use their brain and explore concepts and philosophies that we've had around, but we don't even take the time to look deep into these concepts. And how is this concept affecting your daily life? How is it affecting your community? How is it affecting your nation? How is it affecting progress? Or how is it really helping to move your continent or your nation forward? But maybe others around you are not paying attention, right? So you realize that they had their first conference to launch this idea in London in the 1900s, right? So, and some of the individuals that came together with Sylvester to launch this movement, Pan-Africanism, is W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey. So when you hear of Pan-Africanism or the entire movement of Pan-Africanism, these are the founding fathers. So W.E.B. Du Bois is from the United States of America, and Marcus Garvey is from Jamaica, and then we have Henry Sylvester. He's from Trinidad. What I want Africans to pay attention to is this concept of Pan-Africanism was not founded by Africans themselves at the time where human beings from Africa were sold as slaves. So they are descendants, and they are individuals that will struggle in the society where they find themselves because of this heritage. And so they wanted to come back to a place they can call home. It is very important that we also underscore that somebody like Marcus Garvey was a big proponent of this ideology, and he even made himself the president of Africa. And he did this without consulting the Africans to find out if this was something that the Africans wanted. But when you hear about Pan-Africanism, what comes to your mind is Kwame Nkrumah, right? You think of Kwame Nkrumah, you think of Patrice Lumumba, and you think of Malcolm X in the United States of America, because this was in the 1960s. Why I bring this up is to help us have perspective. There's a saying that what goes around comes back around. Most of the black people around the world are not naive about the role that Africans played in slavery and slave trade. They are not. And my wife and I, we were just doing some research over the week, And we were asking ourselves the question, why is it that most African American men don't get married to African women? They don't get married to African women. Most African American men, right? But you find maybe many African men, they get married to African American women, or you see white men getting married to African women, but you rarely see an African American man getting married to an African woman. And we were just exploring these concepts because it is a good thing for us to be moving towards one direction together as one. That's good, right? But it is very important that we also have someone that asks questions and look at what we are doing to make sure that we are doing the right thing. When we look at the concept of slavery and slave trade and colonialism, which is one of the ideas that Pan-Africanism advocates for. But the question that we ask is, are we the only one that have been enslaved? Are we the only ones that have sold maybe our siblings or sold fellow black people as slaves? Are we the only ones that have been colonized? This is a great question to ask, right? Like I'm talking about change, because there is a saying that when a certain habit stays in the community for more than 2 years, it becomes a culture. The idea of Pan-Africanism has been around for a very long time. Kwame Nkrumah resurrected this idea in the 1960s after he returned from UK. He had joined a communist movement and he believed in socialism, right? The distribution of wealth, right? Let's have equality in society, egalitarianism. What I want us to take a close look at is how this idea of Pan-Africanism has affected our continent. Because this idea was not founded initially by African presidents. This idea was founded by intellectuals. Henry Sylvester was a lawyer from Trinidad. I'm saying this because in Cameroon, we have a movement called Ambazonia. And this movement was also founded by a lawyer called Goji Ndinka. More than 40,000 people have died because of that idea. When we look at the idea called Pan-Africanism, my question to every African country is, which continent have we seen achieve prosperity through a continental free trade area? Right now we have the United States of America, the richest nation on earth. And we also have China, the richest nation in Asia. China did not become prosperous through an Asian free trade area. America, on the other hand, did not become prosperous through a North America or an America free trade area. Where are we getting this idea from? So I went way back to look at the founders of this concept, because it later on became what we call the African Union over time, going way back as 2002. Now it is the African Union. And 75% of the funds in the African Union comes from Europe. This is what I see about the concept of Pan-Africanism, because if you look at it carefully, Kwame Nkrumah, Malcolm X, and Patrice Lumumba in the 1960s are the proponents of this philosophy. And Kwame Nkrumah wanted to become maybe that president. I think Patrice Lumumba was probably the president of Africa, right? And my thing is, Africa is a continent and not a country. And the reason why I brought the founding fathers is because Henry Sylvester grew up in Trinidad with his fellow black brothers and sisters that he sees around him. They spoke a similar language. So their idea is maybe Africa was one nation, one group of people speaking the same language, had similar cultures and all of that. But that is not the reality. Africa is very diverse. Right now, as I speak to you, Cameroon has approximately 250 ethnic groups. Where you find your village in Cameroon today, you guys are not the original settlers of that place. If you ask your tribesmen, they will tell you that they came there, conquered some people, and took over that territory. Whether you find yourself in Kenya or in Rwanda or in Burkina Faso, in Nigeria, where you find yourself today, that tribe, you guys are not the original settlers. You came there, fought some wars, and took over. The reason why I say this is because this is how human beings have been over time. So for those who want to hold Africa for slavery and slave trade, or hold the white folks for slavery and slave trade or colonialism, and I want to say this has been human behavior over time. And this should give you relief, breathe, and be able to have perspective about the past. For those who think maybe Africans are coming together and we can kick out the whites, I want to say, if the whites wanted to colonize you today, they will still do it. Based on what I've seen, the intelligence and how people are thinking, the evolution, they can still do it if they wanted to. But that habit is dying. And it's never going to happen again. And even if it will happen again, it will not be the way you think. Today we sell our houses, sell our piece of land, go get a visa, go over there and get a job and still work and walk away with a fraction of what we make for that company abroad. So even if this was going to happen, it would not be the same way. I hope this is making sense. But stay with me. We are going somewhere with this conversation. So what is my point? When we spread our energy too wide, it is hard for us to make progress. There is a saying that think globally, but start acting locally. It is hard for you to make progress by having the entire continent of Africa come together. There's a continent larger than Europe. But it's just until recent that Europeans came together and said, let's create the European Union. Until then, they've built wealth over time individually. Because when you guys are building your individual countries, there is healthy competition. And that stimulates growth. But when we come together or we say Africa, it is hard for us to make significant progress. And this is my honest perspective on this idea of Pan-Africanism. Point number 2. The idea of Pan-Africanism is championed predominantly by intellectuals. And these intellectuals have this idea of turning you against your government. That is why the idea in Africa is the continent is backwards because of the presidents, because of the leaders. Because of the leaders. That is why Africa is backward. So what have they done? They've turned you against your leaders. You rarely see an African youth that graduated from university that have not been in some conference or some organization that is preaching about Pan-Africanism and also anti-government. There is a big anti-government movement going on in Africa as we speak right now. And so I'm making this message to help fellow Africans have perspective so that you can be able to work with your government in your nation to bring about change. The way we are going, if we are not careful, we will destroy ourselves. So I wanted to dig deep and help you understand where this concept called Pan-Africanism came from and what it has done to you, your psychology. Our governments are work in progress. Yes, they are. They adopted these systems from the colonial masters, and they have been struggling extremely hard to make progress with what they got from the colonial master. But with the pressure that we are mounting on them, instead of them investing in us, in their nation, they are investing in security to protect themselves because of this uprising in the continent. And Pan-Africanism has a huge role to play when it comes to you fighting your government. And I want to help you understand where this idea came from. This idea came from Henry Sylvester, and W.E.B. Du Bois, and Marcus Garvey. These individuals, they grew up understanding that Africa was just one place. The Europeans came and then divided Africa. But that is not true. We had our different tribes, different kingdoms before the European came. If you look at what happened when the European came, it even gave Africa structure. I'm talking about 250 ethnic groups just in my nation. This is our reality. Because what I'm attempting to do is to break through this veil, right? So that we can change. We can see new ways of looking at old problems. We can have perspective on old problems so that we take it easy and do things the right way, build on the right foundation. If not, we might destroy everything we've worked for and put ourselves in problem, because that is what I see happening in my country right now. It has been going on for the past 7 to 8 years. Intellectuals come up with great ideas. We follow it. There's no proof that what they are advocating for has worked for them or worked in the past, and yet they want to put that on you. So Kwame Nkrumah is the first president. Ghana got their independence first, 1957. And so it was a great idea. The question you should ask yourself is, how does your president look at this idea called Pan-Africanism? Most African presidents do not welcome the idea. That should be underscored. Why? Because it indicates that most of their governments will be dissolved. Power will be consolidated in the hands of one person. And the question is, who would that person be? And so if there are young leaders emerging within Africa right now that will become presidents, most of them have been indoctrinated on this idea of Pan-Africanism. And so the whole idea is that they unite Africa, consolidate power in the hands of few people. This is going to be a tough project for us. It will end up disrupting a lot. And we should have that in mind as we push this idea called Pan-Africanism. Most African presidents will have a vision for their nation. They will have a vision for their nation. Say in Cameroon, our president will have the vision maybe 2035. And then we will have also the Pan-Africanism vision of Agenda 2063. Now, this is going to be confusion. Are you going to focus on the vision for your nation, or are you going to focus on the vision of the continent? This is a huge confusion compared to other Western nations, America, China. When there is a vision for that nation, every individual within that nation focuses on that vision for that nation. Now there's a movement, a group within the continent advocating for their own vision. So what happens? There is division. And it makes it hard for you to focus on building your nation. I'm saying this to help you break free, be able to change, and work with your government and work with your nation. And this is why change is hard for most people. Change is hard because the idea that you've known your whole life came from someone that you trusted. Maybe your parents, your teachers, your friends, your community leaders that you love so much. They gave you that idea. You believe in that idea. You letting go of that idea means you betray your friends, you betray your parents, you betray your teachers, you betray maybe your pastors. You will betray a lot of people because you have to let go of this idea. So even if this idea is working for you or not, you want to hold strong to it because you don't want to betray the people that you know that gave you this idea, that you trust and love them. Whether this idea or this tradition is working for you or not, you want to hold strong to it because of your association. This is why change is hard to come for many people. The second reason why you wouldn't want to let go this idea is because this is what you've known your whole life. How can you think of Pan-Africanism being a bad idea? How can you think of Pan-Africanism being the reason why you are unable to focus and build your country? If I ask maybe someone from Kenya, do you understand the challenges Cameroon is going through? They won't answer me. If I ask someone from Ghana, do you understand the dynamics within Cameroon and the struggles we are dealing with? They won't answer me. But yet, they want us to come together so that we can build Africa. And that is why focusing on your individual countries works. Why? Because you understand the socioeconomic dynamics within your nation, and so you can address the problems within your nation easily. There are many problems within Cameroon that I can solve even from a distance because I understand the terrain, I understand the challenges, I understand the people, I understand the culture, so I can solve the problems within Cameroon because I understand Cameroon. You can solve the problems within Ghana because you understand Ghana. You can solve the problem within Nigeria as a Nigerian because you understand Nigeria perfectly. And this is the reason why you should focus on collaborating with your government and build your nation. Pan-Africanism has set you against your government. Pan-Africanism has taught you to hate your government. Government is the problem according to every African inhabitant. Why? Because Pan-Africanism has indoctrinated us to think that the government is a problem. And so that is why people find it very hard to change. Because you feel like you'll betray your culture. You betray your friends. You betray your teachers. You betray your pastors. You betray the intellectuals that you have trusted so much over this period of time. And this is what you've known your whole life. If you let this go, what else? This is why I'm saying to you, change is possible. And again, they've taught you to think of the West as the reason for all your problems. And that is why I'm bringing in perspective to help you understand that human beings have always colonized each other, have always engaged in slavery and slave trade. This is a historical fact. If you ask your mom, ask your dad, or ask maybe your tribe men, they will tell you that the land that you inhabit, you guys came here and fought someone and took over that land. So holding resentment against the West, against the whites, will not help us. Do you get what I'm saying? Will not help us. It will only instigate us to start a fight that we will not be able to sustain. And we will be crushed and we will be hurt. Guess what? We've been fighting our governments. My question is, how has it been working for us? All we have done is get our government to invest in military. And as they invest in military, we starve. Albert Einstein said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So I'm sparking the minds of Africans to start thinking, young Africans in particular, so that you can be able to deviate yourself. A man from Trinidad, a lawyer from Trinidad, came up with the idea Pan-Africanism. W.E.B. Du Bois from the United States, Marcus Garvey from the Caribbeans, Jamaica, made himself president of Africa. And you sit and watch this. This so-called solidarity, black people coming together, we need to be building right now, fellow Africans. Focus on anyone with an idea that can help you expand your economy. There will be time for solidarity. There will be time where we get to come together as black people. But now, coming together, I don't see how this will help us. Economically, I don't see it. These individuals pushing for Pan-Africanism, tell them, go focus and build an app like Facebook and come show us, so that when we follow you, we understand that we will be in safe hands. Tell them, go create your own platform like Google. Go create your own phone. Make something. Create your own airplane. We don't just want talk. We don't just want speeches. We want results. Create something and show us, so that if we follow you, we know we'll be in safe hands. As of now, what we are doing with our government, at least we wake up the next day and see that our country is intact. We are alive. We have a president that we can look up to. This idea, we don't know how it's going to turn out. This is what every African should be focused on right now. Don't be confused. You wake up every day, you log on an app called Facebook. It's owned by the West. And you can connect, interact with people around the world through this app. Do not forget the benefits, the connections, the relationships that you've been able to build through these apps. You get up every day, there's Google. You can research information. There are numerous benefits that you've had from the West. And these are realities that we have to face. We have to get off this high horse and start saying things that will lead us into trouble, because there is an ideologue that has not produced any result pushing for Pan-Africanism, and we want to follow them blindly. And there's no results that they have produced, and yet we believe them to the extent that we will fight our government, will fight the West for their philosophy. Slavery and slave trade did not happen to you. Colonialism did not happen to you. We will deal with the world as we see it today. This perspective will take us far. This is wisdom. It is not foolishness. People think it's all about standing up. Sometimes about sitting down and listening. Because I'm seeing the calamities that lie before us if we are not careful. Young Africans, I see the danger that these old folks, these intellectuals, are about to set us up in before they leave earth. And if we are not careful, if you turn 40 with this idea in your mind, the way we are going about it, we will be hurt. The pain will be enormous. You come back to look at this video that I produced this day and said a brother said this. Thank God we listened. Or we are regretting because we did not listen. I have associated with other great nations, great minds around the world. And I've seen where the world is going towards a point of singularity. It would have been a good idea if we had something to maybe offer those who are coming from these nations. But for now, we are still struggling. Look at the uprising in the continent. We still want to build. We don't have saying you want to bring in someone and how you are going to sustain that individual. We do not have. We have families that we need to feed. We don't yet have the technology that we feel like, okay, we are at that level that we can feel like, okay, let us unite. It is a painful thing, thinking of uniting with the hope that prosperity will come when the entire continent unite. Start by uniting your nation. Look at our country, Cameroon. For the past 7 to 8 years, there has been a political crisis. We have not been able to even solve that problem. Yet we want to join with other African nations and thinking that we will solve the African problem when we come together. No. We are taught even in conflict resolution, you try to break down the problem, identify the root cause, and then you're able to solve that problem chronologically when you break it down. And I think the way Africa is right now, start solving the problems in your individual countries. Maybe someday we'll have a better Africa as we solve those problems within our respective countries. This strategy is sustainable. Don't hold the past, slavery, slave trade, colonialism, and let it cloud your judgment or cloud your thinking or make you go fight your leaders. This has been going on in the continent for a very long time, and I think it's high time we slow down. Look at your presidents, your government, your leaders in authority differently. Cooperate with them. Try to understand the generation that they are coming from and what they have been through. This will help you have perspective and peace of mind as you approach them with your new ideas. They will somehow be a little bit receptive and you guys can cooperate and build your nation. Most African presidents will not want to step down and have a united Africa. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Africa has never been united as one. Those who founded Pan-Africanism thought like that. And that is why they shared the ideas with you based on how they saw it. You know the division within tribes. You know the division within different ethnic groups. You know the division between individuals who speak different languages within your nation. And you can solve those problems. You won't allow someone who lived in 1900, created an idea called Pan-Africanism, and force that on you and you just sit there and receive it. I want Africans to start thinking of coming up with their own ideas, your own vision for your nation or for your continent. Not people outside of Africa thinking for you, imposing on you. You've carried this idea, Pan-Africanism. Maybe you thought that an African came up with an idea. Someone that is of Africa came up with the idea, Pan-Africanism. Today, I just shocked you. Henry Sylvester, a man from Trinidad, came up with the idea. Over time, it has been revised. Kwame Nkrumah picked it with Haile Selassie, with Patrice Lumumba from the DRC. They came together just to revive the idea. It is not their idea. This is how we make progress. The liberation of black people is real. This is something that has been going on for a very long time, right? From the time of Frederick Douglass, he worked so hard with Abraham Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation. Black people were set free in the United States of America. And then we see people like Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, and all of these great individuals. They've advocated for black liberation. I appreciate them. But you see this idea? You see this idea called Pan-Africanism has screwed up the lives of many young Africans, turn them against their government. And that is one of the source of the pain that Africa is going through. Based on my observation, study it carefully. When people are not united, they struggle. When you're not united with your government, you struggle. Your government becomes your enemy. And when your government is your enemy, they invest in military. And when they invest in military, we starve. The cycle repeats itself. And if there's a young person that will become president in Africa, he will be probably a protege, a student of Pan-Africanism. And they will further enforce that idea. And when we will try attacking the West, the pain on us will be enormous. The world is integrating today. That is why you see your social media platform, Facebook, everything is the world coming together. that we can let go of the past, unite, help one another, and walk towards a compelling future. This is no time for division, isolation, which is what the continent has been through for a very long time. We've been isolated, and we cannot go back to that, especially in this dispensation. We cannot go back to isolation. It's going to hurt us. Integration is what helps you develop. You see, the West made it really big because they've always been integrating with each other over time, exchanging ideas, exchanging philosophies, looking for ways to make things better. That is why they've been able to grow. What are those leaders advocating for? That we just come stay in our own corner, it's Africa for Africans. No, let it be Africa for the world. That is a good perspective. All right, if you like this video, you're gonna like this other episode, and you can watch it by clicking right here.